Revelation 1756. From the 29th of December 1940. Services in love. Transmission of light. Sunlight bearer. Everything in the universe serves the being for higher development, but what has reached the degree of maturity is completely independent of every work of creation. Every work of creation has the purpose of leading imperfect spiritual substances towards perfection, that is, to present them with tasks whose fulfillment signifies spiritual progress. And these tasks will always be understood to mean service in love. But the works of creation are of different kinds, and therefore the respective tasks must also be different. That is, the being will have to carry out the activity which earns its spiritual progress. And therefore the different works of creation are completely different from each other, both in their design as well as in their living conditions, but always adapted to the degree of maturity of the beings inhabiting them. The more willing the being is to submit to God's will in serving activity, the greater the tasks it will be given, and the sooner it may take those creations as its abode, where a high spiritual level makes this abode a beautiful and blissful one. For consciously serving with love will also mean walking in the light, and this will always trigger a state of happiness. But service with love consists of the being wanting to pass on the abundance of light. Light, however, is knowledge. Thus the being walking in spheres of light imparts its knowledge to the still ignorant beings, and thus, as it were, irradiates the beings lacking light with its light. Thus light-giving creations must always be in a certain connection with lightless creations. The lightless creations must be dependent on those which radiate light, and insofar the beings of one work of creation serve the beings of the other. The process of light transmission is therefore actually a transmission of knowledge which, however, appears externally through the emission of light and luminosity to lightless works of creation. The radiation of light is a perpetual activity of the luminous beings insofar as they send the light in the form of thoughts to the still ignorant beings, but every thought is light and strength. However, it does not need to be accepted by the light-needing being, then the light transmission cannot be carried out and the state of darkness continues to exist. The beings of such works of creation, to which the light does not penetrate because they do not desire it, are still very distant from God, their knowledge is small and their will towards God very weak, and the beings already dwelling in the light have no power to force them to accept the light. Hence they predominantly irradiate with their abundance of light those works of creation whose inhabitants turn towards the light, who desire the wisdom from God, and who therefore willingly allow themselves to be instructed and thus accept light in the form of spiritual knowledge. The teaching activity of such beings, which therefore inhabit luminous creations, is now to a certain extent also the explanation for the light radiation from such celestial bodies. A luminous body, a sun, will always irradiate countless non-luminous creations, and this is an activity of love by the beings in the beyond which already have a high degree of maturity and want to pass on the light they are constantly allowed to receive again to the beings which still live in darkness, which therefore inhabit creations which correspond to the spiritual state, that is, which are still far from being light-bearers themselves but receive light and luminosity from other works of creation. Amen.